G'day guys, welcome back to part 4 of the How to Build a Tudor Building. In the last episode we finished up with the building that looked like this. I showed some photographs at the end of that video. This one's going to be about how to apply the textured surface to the inside of the walls here to simulate the wattle and daub slash plaster effect. So this is the building that I'm going to create, but for the purposes of this demonstration I've made a little board here, a little simulated section with different containers here, so I can try different sorts of effects inside here, just so I can show you different sorts of things that you can do and different sorts of styles, so that you can achieve some individuality in the buildings if you're building a whole village, for example. So I mean, the process is the same. Here's the building, and the only difference is that this doesn't have the rest of the walls. But the same thing happens. I pour plaster into this side, or glue and sand, or whatever sort of effect you're looking for, and I'm just going to simulate that with this piece here. So hope you enjoy it, and give me some feedback and some comments if you do it some other sort of way. Just leave a comment down below, or post a video response or something like that, because there's lots of different ways to do it. Thanks guys, enjoy. Okay, so these are some of the materials that we're going to need. Some of them we're going to use. Obviously we need our piece. I've got some, this is a non-slip mat. You can buy them in $2 stores. They come in like packs of 5 or 6, etc. It's just obviously like a cross pattern grid, and it's made from some what appears to be a polyurethane foam. A little bit of blue tack, that'll be used with this bit. Some aluminium foil, and I'll show you what that's for a little bit later on. I've got some Hydra stone here. This is a plaster, it's a hard PSI plaster. Some dental plaster, again that's a more solid plaster than plaster of Paris, which can chip and break easily. This sets a lot faster than the Hydra stone does. The Hydra stone is also a lot more, has a higher viscosity rating than the dental plaster here. Viscosity is how liquid something is. We need obviously water, which has a high viscosity, for mixing our plaster with. I've got an empty cup to mix the plaster in, and I've got some sand here also for a different sort of effect. You'll need something to mix everything up with. I just use the end of a paintbrush and some paper towels to clean up with. So let's have a look at the first process. The first process is going to be using the dental plaster in with a little bit of water and our piece of aluminium foil. Okay, so the first step in mixing up the plaster, I always mix all my plasters the same way, unless it's specifically mentioned on the back that it needs to be done a certain way. I put a little bit of water into my cup here. I just need a little bit, so I'm only using a little bit of water. I mean, even then that's quite a lot. A little bit of water and a little bit of plaster will go a long way. Anyway, so I put a little bit of water in the cup, then the plaster mix, I just sprinkle into it until the plaster has soaked up all of the water. And you know when it's soaked up all of the water because you'll be able to see the plaster sitting just underneath the surface, and as you add plaster, the water will soak it up and start to crack on top, just like a desert would if it was drying up a riverbed, for example. If you add too much plaster, you can always add just a little bit more water to the mix and then readjust. Once you've got enough plaster in there, just go ahead and stir it up. Now, because we're not casting anything here, we don't really need to be too concerned about air bubbles, etc. But you want to give it a nice, slow sort of mix. You want, I mean, different sorts of plasters are going to have a different sort of thickness, various viscosities. This dental plaster is quite thick. It sets very fast, so you have to work quite quickly with it. You could also add just a little bit more water after you've started mixing stuff up, just to thin it down a little bit, just to make it a little bit more workable. Since it's going inside some framing and it's going to be part of the building, etc., and be glued and painted and all that sort of stuff, you don't have to worry too much. Okay, so we just mix it up. Enough water in here to make it sort of like a milk or a very runny sort of cream. Depends on your plaster. If you follow the method that I just mentioned about filling it up until it cracks on top, it may be a little bit too firm. Just add some more water. Then I pour this into the space I'm filling, and and I just, whoa, then I just shake it around. So we just put that in there, tap it around to smooth it out, and then we'll get on with the second step, which will be starting to add some texture to this. Now, there's different methods you can use to add texture. One is to wait till this dries and carve your texture in. Whoops, spilt my water everywhere. Or you can do the process that I'm about to do now. All that requires is the plaster sets a little bit. You want it to be a little bit hard for this next step. Try to keep your beams clean. If you do get plaster on them, just clean them up. Because once that dries on there and you dry brush the beams, you'll notice that. Okay, so one step is to, that's starting to harden up. One step is to get yourself a piece of aluminium foil, or aluminum foil, for the Americans out there. Scrunch it up into a little scrunchy bit, and just press it into the top. If you do it too early, the plaster is going to sink back into a flat surface. Now I'll try and get that close up. You can see there's the flat side, and there's the one that's been textured. One other method is just to use your finger on some slightly wet but yet hardened plaster. Just start pressing it. Well, this is still a little bit wet, but any less we'd end up with something that's not workable. Now again, this both give sort of a reasonable sort of finish. It just allows you to add some variety. Now you can see I'm shaking my hand back and forward here to remove fingerprint marks and all that sort of stuff. Now, there's that effect. There's one effect. There's the second effect. The last effect that I'll show you is also with plaster, except I'm not going to use this dental plaster. See, this is already dried in my cup now. It's only been a couple of minutes and it's already dried. But you could mix up some other plaster like this hydrostone, which is a little bit more viscous. I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to add a bit more water and see if it's still usable. I don't think it will be. Now the plaster's starting to harden up. The more water you add to your plaster, the less firm it's going to be. Okay, we're running out of time here. We're staying 10-minute limit.